Now, to talk about these, we're going to take your calls right now about these jailhouse recordings and what impact you think they have on this case. And we've got with us clinical psychologist Dr. Paul Hokemeyer, criminal defense attorney Holly Hughes, and in-session law enforcement contributor Mike Brooks here to help me take your calls. Let's start with Donna in Rhode Island. Donna, how you doing today? And what do you think about the impact of these calls on this trial?
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. Hi, Mike.
How you doing, Donna?
Good. Yeah. Well, it's very hard to watch this case. Very, very hard. But I think he really buried himself in his jailhouse confessions. He was happy, and he was literally calling the police stupid. You know, that they didn't know what they were talking about, and he was laughing through the whole thing like he was doing a scene from a Stephen King book. And I'm going to tell you something. This man is going to write a book in time. He is so guilty that it makes me sick. It just makes me sick.
All right, Donna, thanks for that call. And you know, Holly, I look at this, and you know what the reaction, I think we're going to get a lot of strong reaction on this because it's almost a smugness. You know, it's almost a smug. And again, I just want to say this. He's a young man, he's in prison, he's got mental issues, so you have no idea, it could be the Aspergers, but still, I wonder if that's what the jury is feeling, that smugness.
Well, I think they have to be at this point because what is a jury, Ryan? It is 12 folks from the community. It's not 12 trained psychologists. It's not 12 trained attorneys. I mean, they are hearing the same thing that we're hearing, that coldness, that calculating, you know, laughing and carrying on, and isn't this a big joke, and ha, ha, ha. I mean, people's gut reaction, it's like our Dr. Hokemeyer was talking about, empathy. I mean, people are listening to this and they're going, what is wrong with you? Why do you not feel sorry for what you've done and for what the victim's family is going
But
through?
Dr. Hokemeyer, so go ahead, Mike.
No,
go
no,
ahead.
you listen to the telephone calls and then look at his actions in court.
Yeah.
They don't add up at all.
They're not that consistent.
No.
Dr. Hokemeyer, I got to ask you about this. You talk about the jury evaluating this case. Are we concerned about whether or not the jury can really understand some of his mental difficulties? Because we're sitting here stumped saying, wow, he just sounds so smug. The jury's going to look at him and say, what is wrong with this young man? But at the same time, doctor, he has Asperger's, and we just talked about how that sets up a very different social construct for him.
Well, I think you raise a very good point, and the point being that this invokes such strong emotions that I think a jury would have a very hard time, or will have a very hard time evaluating this. Again, the nature of Asperger's is that the people who suffer from it lack the emotional capacity to understand the nature of their actions, to interact in a significant way with other human beings. So I think you're right. I think this is going to be a very big challenge in this case.
Okay, and you mentioned lacking empathy. I mean, maybe that's what we're seeing is the Asperger's and not a young man who doesn't necessarily care about what happened. I want to turn to Andrea in New York. Andrea, what do you think about this and these jailhouse conversations and what kind of impact they're going to have on the trial and on the jury?
Good morning, Ryan. I think that he obviously, I mean, I understand Asperger's very well, and while that they do have an antisocial component to it, I think that just the conversation he's having with his mom and the knowledge that he knows that they are being recorded and he doesn't care tells me that he's guilty, obviously, number one, but I think that that even though he had enough knowledge and understanding for the forensic aspect of it and the Miranda warnings and all of that, he's writing his own ticket to jail, and I think it's unfortunate. But I don't think just because you have Asperger's syndrome doesn't necessarily mean that you can use that as an excuse to commit a crime.
All right, Andrea. You know, Mike, I look at this and I wonder, his parents are there. I want to look at it like, well, they're trying to keep their son's spirits up, but they know it's being recorded. They know all of this is being recorded. They know it could play out in court, and yet we're still hearing this conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
Right, his parents and, you know, and his friends and asking them questions about what's going on. They basically told him, look, you know, we're not really supposed to talk about this.
Yeah,
and he goes,
you know who said that? His brother.
His brother. Let's move on to other subjects, another topic then.
Yeah.
It's just so as a matter of fact about this whole thing. And it's just, in the whole fact that he would say that he was a witness and there's someone else out there. you know what? He's just trying to make up an alibi for himself, and he's just had enough time sitting there in the jail cell to do that.
And Holly, what do you make of these questions after the fact of police? Not only, we already talked about him having the Miranda card, but I'm talking about him saying, well, he should be okay. He doesn't deserve to die so young. Can you tell me what happens with that kid? Never really mentioning James Allenson's name. I mean, it's tragic to hear, yet he has the Asperger's.
He doesn't even know the kid's name. This was a total stranger to him. This reminds me of the movie Murder by the Numbers, where two very intelligent young men set out to show up the cops. You know, they want to say, hey, I'm smarter than you. I can get away with a perfect murder. This kid bragged about it. And what I hear is cockiness. That's what I hear. The police are stupid. And, oh, I'm a witness. They're just picking on me because I'm the only one that cared enough to hang around. Okay, after you just told 5 people, P.S., I did this, I lost it, I just went a little crazy. So what we see, what I'm hearing, is a certain amount of cockiness that, hey, you know what? I mean, he asked one of the troopers, we just heard the trooper testify, hey, what's manslaughter again? Yeah, what are the elements of manslaughter? He's planning, he has studied, he has done his homework. What do you do homework for? In preparation. That's what you do it for, because you know you're going to be held responsible for that knowledge, and it's going to come in handy. This kid planned this.
In all the testimony you heard about the perfect murder.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's turn to Diane in Massachusetts. I want to get her thoughts on this. Diane, what do you think? These jailhouse conversations, how do you think they play out in this trial? And not only just the trial, how do you think they play to the jury?
Well, good morning, Ryan. I unfortunately don't think they're playing very well to the jury. He is implicating himself, but I am really sad right now. I think there are 2 victims and 2 victims' families. I think John's support system failed him here. I think that he should not have been in a school this size. That's not the least restrictive environment for somebody with Asperger's. And for him to have traveled an hour each day, each way, for that kind of an environment, I'm sad. I'm very sad. I do think he killed him.
See, Diane, do you think he planned it? He did. We know he killed him. Do you think he planned it, or do you think this was more of his mental defects coming out and he didn't really appreciate what he was actually doing?
I think he planned it to the extent that he got wrapped up in all of the things that he was reading. And I do think he planned it. But had he not been in that kind of an environment, it would never have been an issue. I don't think he was in the proper environment for somebody with his mental disabilities.
All right, Diane, thanks so much for the call. Dr. Hokemeyer, got to ask you about this. What do you think about that point? Do you think part of the issue was putting him in this particular school? Very, very good school. Very good school. But do you think that was part of the issue here? If he would have been in another environment, perhaps something like this never would have happened?
Well, again, I can speak to the condition of Asperger's, and I can speak to the fact that because there is such difficulty with reaction and with interactions with other people, that being in a smaller, more comfortable, more familiar environment would definitely have impacted his ability to function in the world and in that environment.
Okay. Mike, I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think... I don't want to blame the school. I don't want to blame the family here. But do you think that somewhere along the line someone let him down and maybe they should have just been watching him a little bit more closely?
Well, you know, we've been talking about this whole subject of mainstreaming. Should he have been mainstreamed into this school? But keep in mind, this is his 3rd school that he had been to, and he just didn't fit in. You know, what the doctor said, possibly a smaller environment would have been better for someone like this, especially with his severe disabilities.
Yeah, so difficult to do in the school system.
It really
but
is.
Maybe it would have maybe it would have saved a life here. Now, you know, thank you so much to our guests and to our callers. You know, this isn't the first case of a killing taking place in a high school. I don't know if you remember this, but In Session covered the trial of Mark Becker, who was suffering from schizophrenia when he shot a beloved high school football coach. Well, Christy Paul's up next, and she has a panel of experts together to compare and contrast the cases. That's coming up next on In Session, your front row seat to justice.